is Thursday, the 29th of June, 2017, and you're listening to Skeptics with a K, the podcast for science, reason, and critical thinking. Skeptics with a K is a production of the Merseyside Skeptics Society, a non-profit organisation for the promotion of scientific skepticism on Merseyside, around the UK and internationally. I am your host, Mike Hall. With me today is Marsh.
Hello.
And Alice.
Hello.
So, for various reasons, we had to record this week's episode in Marsh's kitchen, which means the sound quality is not quite up to the standard that we otherwise might have hoped for. But I hope you'll join us as we gather round some patio furniture with a cup of tea and a chocolate hobnob.
The woo world is full of wearable bollocks.
Wearable bollocks?
Not those like really cool silicone wearable actual bollocks that you can get for people who've lost their testicles to testicular cancer. Rather, things like the magnets we discussed last week, or the sports bands with magic vibrating chips that unclump your blood, or even insertable crystal yoni eggs that you're supposed to carry around with you for some vague reason.
Have you seen the bollocks that you get to put on your car?
Yeah, truck nuts.
Truck nuts.
Yeah.
Why is that a thing?
You know, you get that kind
America
of, that metal thing
exists
on the back of your car for
Yeah.
attaching a tow truck to.
Yeah.
And you can buy these things, which is just a scrotum with a couple of testicles in it, like cast in silicon that you hang on that thing.
You can get them for push bike.
Can you?
That light up, you squeeze them and the light comes on.
Why? Why any of this? I don't understand why any of this. Also, I'm not sure if the cool ones for guys who've like lost the testicles to testicular cancer. I'm not sure you're wearing them at that point because they become an implant, aren't they?
Well, it depends. You can get wearable ones. You can get ones that you wear like a cock ring.
Really?
Yeah.
I can imagine that. It just dangles off a little cock ring.
Okay.
So in your Speedos, you're all the right shape.
It just seems like you...
But you hang it up at night.
Yeah, what's the benefit in having detachable bollocks?
Much easier if you think there's a chance of you getting kicked in the crotch. You can just pop them off and hang them, leave them in the changing rooms.
That'd be a weird thing to stumble across if you're the last one into the changing rooms. A pair of bollocks hanging from a locker.
But a listener, Jamie, recently tweeted another one to us, a product called... actually, I think he tweeted it just to me. A product called Body Vibes. A product that is apparently linked to NASA.
Okay.
According to the Body Vibes website, Body Vibes are smart stickers programmed to deliver natural biofrequencies to optimize brain and body functions, restore missing cell communication, and accelerate the body's natural ability to heal itself. Their tagline is life in perfect frequency, which they claim is between 62 and 72 hertz.
Is their tagline life in perfect frequency or life imperfect frequency? That's a badly worded tagline that said aloud could sound like it's saying the exact opposite of what they're saying. Also, what's 67 hertz, 66 hertz? Why?
No, I haven't the faintest idea. Just to say the frequency of light, well, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
What does that actually mean? What are you saying? Don't talk nonsense.
Yeah, biofrequencies are bollocks. Completely bollocks. We know that they're bollocks. The website is full of images of good-looking people with little stickers photoshopped onto parts of their body, usually 2 or 3 at a time. I really like the website because they're like, I don't know the names of all of the supermodels that they've used, but they are, I recognise the faces. They are catwalk models that they've taken images of and they have photoshopped.
And it's definitely Photoshop.
I presume it's Photoshop because they look like images from women's glossy magazines.
Right,
they are posed proper photographs, like professionally photoshopped and everything. And then they've got these random, and they're all in like grayscale. And then they've got these brightly coloured stickers just stuck on their arms and body parts. It's very bizarre. I'd be surprised if any of the photos on their marketing are photos that they've taken of people. It's very strange. On their science page, they say that body vibes emit a biofrequency. Each body vibe is programmed with a specific subharmonic frequency to target a particular lifestyle concern. Use body vibes smart stickers to optimize brain and body function and increase the body's natural ability to heal itself. Since everyone is unique, effects of body vibes may vary. Some people experience immediate benefits, while others realize the results over time. We recommend wearing body vibes for at least 1 month to experience a complete mind-body reset. Of course, they sell a wide variety of different stickers with ridiculous names. You can buy a self-love one, which is for courage, healing, and self-confidence.
It's different to the kind of self-love you were talking about last show then. Yeah.
But it's a very weird product name in the first place. Body Vibes does not sound like a sticker.
Yeah, Body Vibes self-love.
Yeah.
Sounds very much like the stuff you talked about last week.
Body Vibe does seem like something else entirely. They've got one for pain relief, an anti-anxiety one. They have one called Unicorn Skin.
Unicorn skin? Is it made out of unicorn skin?
We'll come back to what it's made of.
They've skinned a unicorn? That seems...
They've actually discovered the unicorn, and what they've done when they found it is
skin it immediately on the off chance that it might have the right vibrational programming to it for a frequency thing.
Apparently, this promotes cellular turnover. No explanation of why that would be a good thing and how it's comparable to unicorns in any way.
So cellular turnover, that would be what? The death and sort of replacement of cells?
Yes.
Why would you need to... Are they saying that you speed up? Is that what the frequency is? 66,000 times per second your cells are dying and being replaced?
That would be far too fast. I think what they're saying is that it gives you good skin because of the cellular regeneration.
Right.
And therefore it's comparable to unicorn skin.
Okay.
Right, because unicorns famously have flawless skin. Yeah. You never see a unicorn with like a blemish or anything like that. I've never seen one.
True. You know, unicorns are goats. Have we talked about that on the show?
No.
Unicorns are goats.
I don't think we talked about that.
If you look at
like mermaids are manatees.
Are they?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. So the goats obviously have horns.
Yeah. They do have horns.
There is a condition that goats can get where their horns get entangled with each other, and it produces a
spiral horn. Yeah.
Wow.
And if you think about it, most of the depictions of unicorns have got a little goatee beard on them.
Yeah, and they're always white.
Goats have. And also, goats have cloven feet, as do unicorns, whereas horses do not.
And also, goats fart rainbows.
Goats classically fart rainbows.
Yeah.
So there's a reasonable shot that at least some contribution to the unicorn myth has come from goats.
A couple of slightly weirder goats.
Yeah, some weird goats, some historic weird goats.
Yeah, and what about Pegasus?
A really weird goat.
A really weird...
Historic, really
There was a goat with a really big dove sat on its back and someone with bad eyesight from a distance. Has that goat got wings?
Sure, it's actually a bird of prey carrying a goat off with it.
God, that might actually be it.
They've got a mental focus one, which has a drawing of a gold triangle with an eye in the centre on the front of the sticker.
Like an Illuminati. Wow, gives you Illuminati powers.
It claims to stimulate productivity, aid in mental clarity, and to be hormone boosting and mood uplifting.
And to control the world's population and to start all the wars.
With no explanation of which hormone or why boosting hormones might aid in mental focus.
I mean, you wouldn't... Like, the cell turnover is probably not a good idea either, because if you increase cell turnover, every time your cells divide, you lose bits of DNA off the ends.
Yeah.
Which is what we've got telomeres for. The more rapid your cell turnover, the faster that bit of DNA you lose at the end is going to get into a coding region.
Yeah.
And you're going to start developing things like cancer.
Well, usually once you've run out of telomeres, they stop dividing.
Stop dividing properly.
Your cells just stop. They've got like 50 replications and then they stop.
Really? Just 50? And how often do they replicate?
It depends on the cell type.
Every couple of years, I guess.
Like your nerves never replicate.
So they've got 50 in them, they just don't bother using them. That's a bit shitty.
And then a lot of anti-aging research is working to reactivate an enzyme called telomerase, which regenerates the telomeres in babies in developmental stages, but you lose the enzyme or stop producing the enzyme when you're older.
And is that what you get in those kind of face creams and things, that enzyme?
Sometimes, yeah.
Is it really? I was joking. Oh, God.
There are face creams that claim to activate or make use of telomerase.
Blimey.
There is one sticker called Beauty Sleep, which apparently releases natural melatonin, which is a claim that they categorically can't make. It has not got any melatonin in it. They're saying it's a biofrequency. They can't say it's releasing melatonin.
Yeah.
I think what they mean is it's stimulating your body to release melatonin. It doesn't do that.
It probably
either.
isn't doing that, yeah. And we've covered the claims for melatonin recently.
Yes, we have. And that's not going to help most people sleep better. Only helps for people with sleep disorders, but it's not going to do that anyway. There's one called At the Beach, which has a picture of a mermaid on it. It says, negative ion therapy has a healing and restorative effect on the body balance. On the body balances emotions, there's no comma there, and inspires joy. I don't understand why it's called At the Beach.
Does it not mention anything
No.
Beach related.
It says negative ion therapy has a healing and restorative effect on the body, balances emotions, and inspires joy. That's all it says.
I guess you get joyful at the beach, but it all depends.
That's a stretch.
You don't always get joyful at the beach. I mean, if you've been like involved in a tsunami at some point, you might get like traumatic flashbacks of a beach.
Sometimes you get heat exhaustion at the beach.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't like beaches. I don't like sandy beaches.
Or maybe you get flashbacks to having seen that Leonardo DiCaprio film, The Beach.
The Beach, yeah, sure.
Which I never watched.
I've never seen it.
No.
I hope Alice has seen it and neither of us have.
That would be amazing.
That would be good.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, damn it.
There's one called Hangover, which promises it prompts the body to release glutathione, which detoxifies alcohol from the body and disarms your hangover. Which
disarms your hangover.
Disarms your hangover. How armed is your hangover? What is it armed with?
Which would be fine. You do need glutathione to help break down the breakdown product of alcohol. So you break down alcohol into acetaldehyde, and buildup of acetaldehyde does contribute to hangovers. And glutathione helps break down the acetaldehyde. But there's no way a small sticker, apparently imbued with only some magic frequency, can prompt the body's release of glutathione. Clearly doesn't do anything. There's a detox sticker for reducing toxic substances in the body. And my favourite is a hydrate sticker, which claims biofrequencies stabilise negative ions, balances pH, hydrates, and aids absorption.
It hydrates you. It fills you with water.
It hydrates.
This sticker gets water into you.
Yeah. To buy these stickers, you have a few options. You can buy a 10-pack of individual ones of the different types for $60.
Okay.
You can buy a variety 12 or 24 pack for $64 or $120.
Why do you need so many of them? Do they wear out after a while?
Yes.
So the frequency isn't just like forever, like in the biodot that we covered last week.
No.
They die.
And also you stick them to your skin, so eventually they're going to lose the stick.
Yeah, but I mean, if I'd paid $60 for a load of them, and the only issue was that they got less sticky, I'd just put an elastic band around it to hold it. I'll stick a bit of tape over the top.
Bit of Pritt stick. Bit of Pritt stick
would do.
Pritt stick on the back. Just get that on the.
That might
That
interfere.
would feel horrible. Pritt stick on skin is horrible.
And also, it might start interfering with the magic kind of hydrating effects because the water that's coming out of this little sticker
Yeah, it's getting absorbed into the glue.
Yeah, that's not going to be good.
The glue will work really well though at 72 hertz. That Pritt stick, basically super glue when you get it at 72 hertz. It's brilliant.
You can buy an Alyssa Goodman Detox 10-pack, which comes with 5 detox stickers and 5 hydrate stickers for $68. They don't explain at all who Alyssa Goodman is. I googled her. Apparently, she's a holistic health coach, but they don't explain it anywhere on the product page. But at this point in my website browsing, it was clear that they still haven't properly explained what the stickers actually do or are. They do have a how to vibe page, which explains how to use the stickers, which is basically stick them on. They do say it's preferable to stick them to your left side, close to the heart. For what purpose? No idea.
When they had the pictures of all the models, were they wearing the sticker superimposed onto their heart?
No, a lot of them were wearing them on the back. So they do say it on the back of the shoulder is quite good, on the back of the left shoulder or on the upper arm. Or so they say for people who are a sensitive type, they should wear them below the heart. And for anybody else, you should wear it above the heart.
Do they define sensitive?
Nope.
Okay. Is that sensitive as in like sensitive skin? Is it sensitive as in like photosensitive? I don't know.
Did you see the thing from Boots about sensitive skin?
No.
That was interesting.
What
Someone
was
took a photograph in store at Boots of their sun cream aisle, and they had a thing where they listed skin types down the side and where you were going to visit. So is it Northern Europe, Southern Europe, tropics, and equator? And they gave a little chart of what SPF you should buy. So if you've got, fair skin and you're going to the equator, get SPF 50 plus. If you've got fair skin, you go to Northern Europe, you might get away with SPF 30. And it's kind of giving you minimum values and so on. And the skin types that they had down the side was black, brown, olive, normal.
Normal? Fucking hell.
Then fair and sensitive.
Normal?
But normal.
Bloody hell.
Christ.
Black, brown, olive, normal? What?
As someone who's fair-skinned, I feel for the first time I've been racially abused there. That's astonishing to me.
They also suggest that you might want to try cocktailing to mix different types together, which explains why all the images have people wearing 2 or 3 at a time. And importantly, you should do the following to optimize the stickers. You should drink water. Stay well hydrated. Water is a major conductor of electricity.
But one of the stickers hydrates you. Mm-hmm. But to make that work, you need to drink a lot of water. Incredible.
Get wet. The product is waterproof, can be worn in the shower or while exercising. Vibes for days. Each Body Vibes smart sticker remains effective for up to 72 hours.
Up to?
Up to.
So at some point it stops being effective. Is there any way of knowing when it stopped being effective? No, because it's not like it works. So.
And then the last one they say is, take note, prescription drugs, computers and cell phones may weaken the smart sticker.
Whoa. So they're saying don't take your prescription drugs if you're wearing this sticker?
Which is obviously potentially very dangerous advice. A lot of the things they advertise it for is for things like anxiety or pain, things that you might not be taking medication that is fundamental to you staying alive. But if they... are saying any prescription drugs, you might have somebody who's got pain but also is on heart medication and is then saying, well, I can't take this heart medication because it's going to interact with my magic sticker.
Yeah. There could be a reason why you have pain, and that reason might be something diagnosable. Yeah.
But they still haven't really said how they work. But they do have a science and tech page which says Body Vibes are smart stickers embedded with a specific combination of biofrequencies designed to enhance and activate particular targeted systems. It's like wearing mobile software that communicates with our body's operating system.
It's like that, but also nothing like that, because that means nothing.
Mm-hmm. The fascinating science behind biofrequency technology was developed by our partner, Alpha Biocentrics, a global leader in the research, development and manufacture of energy-enhancing products. Inspired by frequency research conducted by the biggest US defense contractor, Alpha Biocentrics pioneered bioenergy synthesis technology, BEST, a process using a one-of-a-kind FDA-approved device, the Accelerator Frequency Generator, AFD. The AFD captures biofrequencies from a comprehensive catalogue of known frequencies that are then digitally transferred to Body Vibes.
A catalogue of known frequencies?
Yes.
I don't understand what that means.
No.
Because a frequency they're saying is just a number, like 66 hertz. So they've got a list of known frequencies. Yeah. So their list is like 66 hertz, 67 hertz, 68 hertz. That's just counting.
Yeah. So it still doesn't really explain what it is or what it does. So I went to the Alpha Biocentrics website and found an article about the technology. They say Alpha Biocentrics, a Nevada-based biotech company, announced it has developed a new programming procedure called bioenergy synthesis technology. This is a technique used in programming wearable bioenergy skin patches that can influence the energy field that surrounds all life forms via the central nervous system through sympathetic resonance. It's like wearing a mobile software app that retrains the automatic programs that run our body's operational systems.
That still means nothing.
It's all just words.
Yeah.
What
does that even mean? It's like a mobile app that reprograms the body's operating system. That's not even how mobile apps work. No. that they reprogram the operating system.
That's true. There would be an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, an application that reprograms the operating system is often called a virus.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
It's not a good thing. They say the patches are made from a specialised biofeedback material designed for NASA to inner line the spacesuits. Made of a polyvinyl carbon crystalline blend embedded with metallized fragments, which was designed to hold and transfer RF frequency. Our engineers built a device, AFG, to program the material with beneficial frequencies to interact with the central nervous system for beneficial results to the human body.
Oh, beneficial frequencies.
The CNS.
What do you mean?
The CNS uses the digital information it recognizes and ignores the rest, eliminating any possible side effect or overdose.
What? You can't overdose on these frequencies?
No.
Well, that's true.
Although they do say on the Body Vibes website that you might feel unwell when you first start using them. You might start to feel quite down as your body starts subconsciously processing emotional issues that you're going through.
And you stop taking your prescription medication.
Taking your prescription medication, yeah. That's true, because there's a lot of people who say they use it to get off anti-anxiety meds.
Mm-hmm. And they start feeling down.
Yeah.
Shock that, innit?
They clearly don't want to tell anyone exactly how they're embedding these pieces of special spacesuit stickers with frequencies. I wonder why that is.
It's because they're not, isn't it? Because they're not.
The NASA claim is quite interesting, though. Alpha Biocentrics have been making this claim at least since 2014 and largely seem to have gotten away with it. But recently, Body Vibes have been making the same claim, which has been regurgitated on Gwyneth Paltrow's website, Goop.
Gotcha. That's where this comes in, isn't it? Bloody hell.
It turns out even the source of material these things are made from is bollocks. Gizmodo recently published an article called NASA Calls Bullshit on Goop's $120 biofrequency healing sticker packs, ridiculing the stickers, in which they said, there's no shortage of things to be mad about in late capitalism. Pretty high on the list, though, is the Eat, Pray, Love brand of pseudoscience promoted by Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop. Somehow, Goop, which previously encouraged women to shove eggs up their vaginas, has out-gooped itself. The brand is now promoting stickers called Body Vibes. The product, which I remind you is literally a sticker, uses NASA spacesuit material to rebalance the energy frequency in our bodies. So Gizmodo asked NASA if this really was spacesuit material, because that's quite an easy claim to test. And they said, a representative from NASA's Spacewalk office told Gizmodo that they do not have any conductive carbon material lining the spacesuits. So not only is it not that material doesn't
even
exist.
Yes. Well, it makes sense, because you wouldn't really want that, would you? I can't see why, if you were in space and were exposed to all sorts of different kind of radiation-y type things, you wouldn't want a suit that conducted frequency type stuff.
You wouldn't,
I wouldn't imagine.
You'd want
unless
protection.
You wanted it to conduct it around you like a Faraday cage.
Like a Faraday cage, yeah.
But
turns out they don't. Turns out they don't need that. Yeah.
They also asked Body Vibe for some peer-reviewed data, which they've not had any news on. They asked Alpha Biocentrics the same question and were met with the reply that most of the research that has been collected is confidential and is held as company private information.
It's not how research works.
No.
However, Gizmodo's question about the material and the NASA reply did prompt a change on the Body Vibe website. When I looked, there was no mention of this magic, mythical spacesuit material. And they released a statement saying, we apologise to NASA, Goop, our customers and our fans for this communication error. We never intended to mislead anyone. We have learned that our engineer was misinformed by a distributor about the material in question, which was purchased for its unique specifications. We regret not doing our due diligence before including the distributor's information on the story of our product. However, the origins of the material do not in any way impact the efficacy of our product.
That's true. That is true.
It is true. Body Vibes remains committed to offering a holistic lifestyle tool, and we stand by the quality and effectiveness of our product. And Goop have also removed that particular claim from their site too. But really, when you're buying a product that's named after a mythical creature made from a mythical material imbued with mythical frequencies, with marketing images of a photoshopped product on stock images, can you really be sure the product actually exists? Either way, it's a waste of $120.
So here we are, 201 episodes into Skeptics with a K.
It is 201.
Okay, what's 201?
201 is created. That's it. HTTP status code 201 is created.
Okay, so it's a created episode.
Created. This episode has been created.
It's created rather than, I suppose, found.
Yeah, or evolved. So here we are, 201 episodes into Skeptics with a K, plus specials, of course. And as listeners all know by now, Alice likes to talk about sex and cancer. Two separate topics.
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe someday we'll combine the two.
So Alice likes to talk about sex and cancer. Marsh, you like to talk about weird stuff and PR.
Yep, true.
And famously, you can't stop me talking about conspiracy theories.
Constantly. Although many people have tried to stop you. they don't want you talking about, which is why on many of the episodes you'll find that Mike's story about conspiracy theories doesn't make it out.
Just doesn't make it out.
Every 201 episodes you've talked about conspiracy theories, and maybe 3 of them have ever got broadcast.
But it's on our Wikipedia page, so it must be true. I rarely talk about anything else when you really think about it. It's like I have some sort of special interest in it or something. In fact, if you listen back to the 6 months of material I've just done on the placebo effect, was I really talking about 9/11 the whole time?
Dun, dun, dun.
I mean, I might have been. I'm not saying that I was.
No.
I'm just asking questions.
I'm
just putting it out
questions
there.
out there.
Just putting it out there. So it should come as no surprise that today I am once again going to be banging the drum about those pesky 9/11 conspiracy theories in an article that was sent in by a listener. I say listener, a partial listener, because I don't think she's actually listened to every episode.
Did Alice send you this by any chance?
Alice sent me this. This is an article sent to me by Alice. This has become a self-fulfilling prophecy at this stage.
Yeah.
Really. Somebody on Wikipedia decided that I'm into conspiracy theories.
And now you get sent all
and
the
now
conspiracy
I get sent the conspiracy stuff. Even by you guys. Send me the conspiracy stuff.
Well, I wasn't going to do it.
And so I
Marsh wouldn't have been interested.
I end up covering the conspiracy stuff. Anyway, 15 years later, the headline reads, 15 years later, Physics Journal concludes all 3 World Trade Center towers collapsed due to controlled demolition.
A physics journal said that.
Physics Journal has said this. This is an astonishing revelation.
Blimey, yeah.
For listeners who've been living under a rock for the past 20 years.
Or living in Iraq for the last 20 years.
The 2 towers of the World Trade Center were struck by hijacked commercial aeroplanes in 2001 and collapsed shortly afterwards. A third building, known as Building 7, collapsed some hours later. The official story is that the damage to the building's internal structure, combined with severe fires, weakened the towers, and they eventually collapsed under their own weight. Building 7 collapsed as a result of fire and falling debris from the other buildings as they collapsed. These explanations are not sufficient for conspiracy fans, however, who insist that the planes which hit the towers were not hijacked by Al-Qaeda terrorists, but by the United States government. Or there was actually no hijacking and the planes were remote-controlled military aircraft. Or there was no impact at all and the planes were holograms. Or the footage were all faked with computer graphics and the buildings came down as a result of a... They don't actually care which of these stories is true.
No.
They just care that the official story isn't.
Oh God, I hope there's some extreme 9/11 truthers who their version of it is that the buildings themselves never existed and were holograms for the best part of 100 years, and then they just stopped. They stopped. So yeah, that'd be great if there were people who genuinely were like, yeah, the Twin Towers never existed.
Never happened. Wasn't there?
What, you believe there were 2 towers? Yeah, God, wake up, sheeple.
So they often don't care which of these stories is true. They only care that the official story is not true because George Bush wanted to steal Iraqi oil, so he framed a Saudi terrorist living in Afghanistan. Or the Illuminati did it because they want to keep us scared, or some other reason. Again, it doesn't matter.
Insurance
why.
Fraud, bank heist.
It just matters that the official story is wrong.
So I did a recent episode of Be Reasonable where I spoke to a 9/11 truther, and he said the reason that the towers were brought down was so they could go to war for oil in the Middle East, and also because in one of the buildings there was a lot of gold in the basement, so they were able to steal that gold. And also, in another of the buildings, a lot of information that they wanted destroying, so they destroyed a lot of evidence.
All right.
And also, the people who bought the building bought it just before the towers fell, and it was a massive insurance job. And I think there was also a 5th reason. It was just the most convenient, the centre locale that would tick every one of these amazing boxes. Like, oh, we blow this up, we get a million different things all at once.
It's more convenient than a Stephen Moffat plot. If I were to hazard a guess, and this is entirely supposition on my part, I would say that these people want these conspiracies to be true because it is more comforting to believe that somebody really is in control of the world, even if that person is evil.
Yeah.
It is more comfortable to believe that an evil cabal runs the world than it is to think that no one is in control at all, and terrorists with Stanley knives really can just hijack a plane and cause the kind of lasting impact that incident has had on the world.
Yeah, I also think there's an element of people who disagreed with the war in the Middle East and the effect that war had. It's much easier to be fully against that war if you believe the government faked the reasons for going to war in the first place. If you have to believe that there was an atrocious terror atrocity perpetrated against America, and then they went to war and they committed a lot of atrocities in that war, that's a much harder belief to hold ideologically. So it's much easier to go, well, the government's bad in the war and also bad in the lead up to the war, therefore bad government all round, therefore we can be against it. I think there's an element of that to some parts of it.
Unfortunately, the objections raised to the official story are often naive, vacuous, or simply bollocks. Oh, look, that's a CGI glitch. Except it's not, mate. You just didn't check the geography of New York City. Or, look, the hole in the side of the Pentagon is too small to have been a plane. Except the problem is that physics doesn't work like a plan devised by Wile E. Coyote, you fucking bellend. That's not an homonym. That's just an insult. So, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about all of that because I'm not an engineer, I'm not a physicist, I'm not an architect, I'm a computer programmer. I have no expertise in this field, despite what Wikipedia might try to tell you. So I am relying upon reports from people who do know what they're talking about in order to inform my opinion. So maybe I'm completely wrong and the collapse of the towers in Building 7 really was a controlled demolition.
Well, that's good then that this new paper's come out in the physics of building engineering, I think you said it was the name of the journal. This physics journal was definitely building science, I think. Well,
here is the story from the website antinews.in.
Anti-news?
Anti-news.
Is that A-U-N-T-Y?
No.
It's like news from your mother's sister.
A new forensic investigation into the collapse of the 3 World Trade Center towers on 9/11 published in Europhysics News, a highly respected physics magazine, claims that the evidence points overwhelmingly to the conclusion that all 3 buildings were destroyed by controlled demolition.
So we've gone from a journal to a physics magazine now.
Indeed, yes.
And it's a forensic investigation.
A new forensic investigation.
What do they mean by forensic? Because you think forensic is kind of like poring over the physical details in person, looking for clues and evidence.
We'll come to the content of the article itself.
I thought we might.
Shortly, but before we talk about the paper itself, I want to talk a little bit about antinews.in, the origin of this telling, at least, of the story.
Is this news that's sort of about ants? It's got a peripheral...
Ant-like news.
Yeah, it's antish news.
Anti-news is what you might characterize as a fake news website. Now, fake news is something of a buzzword at the moment, especially following the last US presidential election. But I would argue that fake news is a very specific thing. I would argue that fake news is invented news stories for the purpose of gathering advertising clicks.
Yeah, it's weaponized clickbait.
Yeah, that is what fake news is. That is different to propaganda, which is news, sometimes real and sometimes not, designed to sway, quite often not, but it's designed to sway political opinion.
Yeah.
And that is different to satire, which is spoofing the news in order to make a point.
Yes.
And it's definitely different to news I do not want to be true, which is often how the phrase fake news is being used at the moment. Somebody publishes a story you don't like or that you don't want to be true, so you decry it as fake news, and therefore it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, or a journalist asks you a question about something, and you don't want to answer that question, so you write the question off as fake news, even though it is literally a question, which you could deny the centre point of the question, and that would be a response to that.
Now, we have actually talked about fake news on the show before, a couple of years ago, in a segment which we recorded, but which I eventually cut because I didn't feel that it worked very well.
Was that when I was talking about some animals that were pretending to be wildebeest? I think that was fake news.
Yes, you may well have made that pun during that story.
I think I did.
Of course, it means that I personally am to blame for the state of the entire world today, because had I not cut that segment, then the public would have been more aware of what fake news was 2 years ago and would not have fallen for all these stories about 350 million for the NHS or saving Medicaid. And so for that, I can only apologise. It's definitely personally my fault.
It is, yeah. I'm glad you finally apologised. We can put that terrible that whole scene behind us.
It's a burden that rests heavy on my shoulders. But in that segment, we talked about an article which claimed that a 44-year-old woman from Arkansas had been jailed for trying on tampons in the feminine care aisle of her local Walmart.
I don't even remember that.
We also talked about another article which claimed that a 33-year-old woman had been arrested for masturbating with hot dog sausages in a Walmart in Louisiana.
Weirdly, I do remember that.
Neither of these things actually happened. They are invented stories. These two stories originated from the website Now 8 News, which is a website which publishes untrue news stories to earn advertising impressions. They're not spoof news stories, they're not satire, they aren't making some underlying political point, they are literally just lies.
Yeah, and you can often tell because they'll have a specific location in the headline, because they know that people from that area are more likely
to click.
And you see that a lot both in completely fake news and in dodgy PR news, where they'll put a local angle in. It's like people from Preston are having the most marital affairs. And then you see that and it's got like 4 or 5 different cuts of the same story, pulling out a slightly different stat with a slightly different town, and every one of them gets a big hit locally.
Here are some more headlines from Now 8 News. They published a story titled Elementary School Student Expelled for Pimping Out Female Classmates, $3 for Kisses and $2 for Hugs. That was shared on Facebook over 1,000 times. Gynecologist surgically removes a cow's tongue from a woman's vagina after she complains of a foul smell. That was shared on Facebook over 20,000 times.
People are fucking idiots.
And Alabama man caught having sex with a pig in Walmart bathroom. They like doing things in Walmart.
It plays into prejudice. People. It plays into a prejudice of the type of people who would shop at Walmart and the type of people who are from Alabama.
That was shared on Facebook over 500,000 times.
That's why that one's got so much hits. Many hits.
Images that are associated with these articles are often mocked up to look like a screenshot from an American regional news station and feature bizarre-looking photographs of the alleged perpetrators, except that these photographs are often mugshots taken from the website smokinggun.com, which is a website that publishes bizarre and amusing mugshots. And usually these mugshots predate the publication date of the article by several years. Anti-News is a site that I would put in the same category. They publish lies, they publish misleading exaggerations, and they publish other nonsense for the ad impressions. They are pure clickbait.
Yeah, they are. They're often, I mean, not specifically that site, but sites that are very, very similar then get processed through Outbrain and Taboola, which are the content aggregators that you'll find at the bottom of stories in the Daily Express or even the Guardian.
Even several skeptic blogs I've seen Outbrain at the bottom touting complete clickbait lie bollocks.
Yeah, completely and literally just lies. Literally, there's not spin, not satire, just an actual lie on a site that you would otherwise trust to tell the truth. Outbrain and Taboola are a big, big problem that we just don't really acknowledge or talk about.
In this instance, however, we do not need to rely solely on the word of Anti-News to examine this story because they cite a scientific journal as the source, which is Europhysics News. So rather than simply write this off as clickbait by purveyors of fake news, we can actually look at the original paper.
Is this Europhysics News?
Europhysics News.
If these aren't the physicists directly involved in the physics of structural engineering or architecture, what we're looking at is a magazine for people who aren't involved in the field and people who aren't even in the same continent as the buildings.
Well, Europhysics News is not a scientific journal.
Right, there we go.
It is just a magazine.
Yeah.
The magazine is published by the European Physical Society, which is a non-profit organisation for the promotion of physics.
Okay.
Now, that isn't to say that Europhysics News is a pseudoscientific publication or that it is engaged in fake news themselves, but it is not a scientific journal in the usually understood sense. It is not peer-reviewed. They publish news, views, and discussion pieces. And when they published this piece, they led the story with a disclaimer. Quote, "This feature is somewhat different to our usual purely scientific articles in that it contains some speculation."
Why do they publish it then?
They published it because it was the 15-year anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks, and they thought they wanted to do something to mark the attack.
So they published some lies.
So we are already a long way from the original claim that a physics journal has concluded the collapse of the towers and of Building 7 was a controlled demolition. Now we're talking about an article described as speculation published in a non-peer-reviewed magazine. The authors, Stephen Jones, Robert Correll, Anthony Sambutley, and Ted Walter are, according to Snopes.com, known and prominent members of the 9/11 Truth community, with Ted Walter being the director of the organisation Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth.
Oh, Ted! Yes, I've emailed him in the past.
Yes,
yeah, I couldn't get him. On the show. Maybe I'll try again. I also tried to get pilots for 9/11 Truth on the show. There's lots of blanks for 9/11 Truth.
Yes.
So I got a couple. The only one I got on to be reasonable was actors and artists for 9/11 Truth. I don't know. It was going to. But I couldn't put the interview out. I don't think in the end. I can't remember. Anyway.
So Ted Walter is a professional conspiracy theorist, and the article itself repeats a number of well-understood and debunked truther arguments and has nothing new to say about any of them. Quote, "Fires typically are not hot enough and do not last long enough in any single area to generate enough energy to heat large structural members to the point where they fail."
Members. Sorry.
I did think about putting a large member joke in there, but
didn't bother.
I just couldn't get to something
I can imagine.
And stay in the flow of the story. So fires typically are not hot enough. Basically, jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams.
Yeah.
Except that this is not a typical fire. It's easy to say fires typically don't get that hot. Typically, they don't. This was not a typical fire.
Yeah.
These buildings would have been weakened already by the fact that it had just been hit by something like 300,000 pounds of metal travelling at a significant fraction of the speed of sound.
It's amazing they always gloss over the fact that some planes flew into the side of the building. Yeah. Well, fire alone couldn't bring a building like that down. Fire alone didn't. Turns out there's two fuck-off planes flew at the side of it.
And then that is a lot of kinetic energy, which is going to cause a lot of damage. The planes also brought with them a lot of jet fuel, which could keep fires burning, which would otherwise have burned out once they burned all the carpets and furniture and desks and things. There's suddenly then basically a full plane of jet fuel to continue those fires burning. They say most high-rises have fire suppression systems which prevent a fire from releasing sufficient energy to heat the steel to a critical failure state. Now, this one's something of a delicate issue, given that London has recently had the fire at Grenfell Tower, a 24-storey residential high-rise, which, at the time of recording, has caused the deaths of 9 people, and a further 70 are missing and presumed dead.
I think it's up to 79 actually confirmed dead by the police now.
They have not identified 79 bodies.
No.
There are 79 people who are listed as dead, but 70 of those we are assuming are dead because we have no remains, but they have disappeared.
Yeah, and there's a good chance that number will rise in the future too.
As the investigation is ongoing. Grenfell Tower lacked a sprinkler system, which may have reduced the death toll or even stopped the fire at source, as the latest data seems to suggest that the fire started in a fridge freezer. And if Grenfell Tower had a built-in sprinkler system, then the fire would have started, the sprinklers would have started, there's a good chance it would have been put out, and it would never have spread to the flammable cladding that outside the building that took it on to the stuff. Now, this isn't something that's particularly easy for us to comment on because it's a very raw event and emotions are running very high, and the investigation is still ongoing, and the data may well have changed by the time the show goes out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have seen articles already appearing from the 9/11 Truth Movement citing Grenfell Tower as support for their claims that high-rise buildings do not collapse as a result of fire. And formally, and on behalf of right-thinking people everywhere, I would like to tell people making that argument to fuck right off.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've also seen people saying it's a false flag.
I've seen people saying it's a false flag operation from various different parties. You know, the government burned it down to distract us from the Brexit negotiations, or the immigrants burned it down to make fuck off.
Yeah, everybody, the people who will make their own political capital out of this are finding a way to make their political capital out of it. Yeah, it's disgusting.
Returning to the World Trade Center attacks, certainly, yes, a sprinkler system may have helped keep fire temperatures down, perhaps enough to prevent structure from softening enough to trigger a collapse. But any such sprinkler system is unlikely to have been designed with aviation fuel fires in mind, and moreover would probably have been rendered inoperable by the whacking great plane which smacked into the side of the building, which almost certainly took out any sprinkler system, would have trashed all of the pipe work that was running the sprinkler system and stopped it from being able to effectively suppress anything. Yeah,
I mean, I think the biggest question that I have about all this at the moment is, how does this relate to the placebo effect, Mike? I don't understand how you're going to get to a placebo effect story from here.
They also say structural members are protected by fireproofing materials, which are designed to prevent them from reaching failure temperatures within specified time periods. Very good, and I'm sure that structural member fireproofing is unlikely to have been designed to withstand the force of a high-speed impact from a plane.
Yeah.
And finally, they say steel-framed high-rises are designed to be highly redundant structural systems. Thus, if a localized failure occurs, it does not result in a disproportionate collapse of the entire structure, which is absolutely the case. But it would appear to be the case that there was more than localized damage here, given that the building was hit by a commercial jet plane. There seems to be a running theme.
They just forget the plane hit
some here.
Yeah.
That they forget the whole plane thing. Following the publication of this piece, Europhysics News has faced some criticism, not surprisingly. They faced this criticism last August, because despite the fact that Anti-News published this just a few weeks ago, the article in Europhysics was actually the middle of last year.
Yeah, for the 15th anniversary of 9/11, yeah.
But I suppose when you're a clickbait merchant, you don't care if your stories are true or false. You're also unlikely to care if they're out of date. In response to the criticism from Stephen Knight from Godless Spellchecker, they published a statement where they said, Europhysics News is a magazine which publishes a wide range of news and views to stimulate discussion, unlike peer-reviewed research, which would be published in a scholarly journal. EDP Sciences, which is their publisher, follows the most rigorous peer review standards for all of its journals, of which Europhysics News is not one. None of which I think actually excuses Europhysics' publication of this bollocks.
No.
But it does mean that the story boils down to conspiracy theorists publish conspiracy theories in niche magazine, which is unlikely to have brought in quite as many advertising clicks as the headline they actually ran with.
Okay, so we have questions this week, and we want to pick up this one question we got actually from someone in Oklahoma. Not to say that the last time we played a sound clip from someone who is in Oklahoma wasn't actually someone in... I'm pretty sure that person was in Oklahoma.
From Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But this is someone who's also from Oklahoma and sounds more like a typical Oklahoman resident.
This is Mark, actually in Oklahoma. And I have a question for you. And it's something that maybe you can answer because it's been on my mind for a while. What can I, as someone who doesn't go to conventions, doesn't have the time to do many things, doesn't have the funding to do many things, do to help out skeptics as a whole? Thanks. Bye.
So, good question. What can someone do who doesn't have the time or the resources to get to conferences or to start their own podcast or do all that kind of thing? I think the biggest thing that I could suggest is sharing the kind of stuff that people are doing. So the types of stories that you see that are kind of good skepticism, spreading that kind of message where you can. And also, talking to people around you who might hold kind of interesting, odd beliefs, talking gently through why they have those beliefs and how you can challenge them, and just generally being... it's something that George Schwab gets from time to time. People say, what can I do as an atheist?
Yes.
And to try and promote atheism. And Gio's kind of answer is, be the person that those people around you love and respect and admire, and be an atheist.
Yeah.
And so they put the two things together. Be a good moral person who's kind and tries to help out, so that when people think of an atheist, they don't think of the cartoon version of an atheist they see on television on Fox News as they kind of decrying people who are upset and offended by the little baby Jesus on the lawns of Christmas, but they'll think of you and then the type of person you are. And I think that's true also of skepticism, is if you're able to be the kind of person that when they think of someone who doesn't agree with homeopathy or psychics, they're not thinking of a cartoon of someone, some angry person just yelling at things they disagree with, but they think of someone who is reasonable and has reasonable criticisms and who tries to be very responsible in the way that they discuss things. So I think that's one of the things you can do, is just be visible if it's safe for you to be visible as a skeptic in your kind of community, and being sort of nice, being kind of respectable, and so people kind of associate things in that way. That's what I would say. I don't know whether you guys have got any kind of add on that.
I agree with that. Just the kind of don't be a dickhead. Because otherwise people will think, oh, that guy's a skeptic and a dickhead. Maybe skeptics are dickheads. So there's that, but also helping to amplify the message that other people put out there. So when you see a skeptical Facebook post, maybe you share that. Yeah. Maybe you don't if you don't agree with it or whatever. But if you see a skeptical Facebook post, maybe share that. If you see a skeptical tweet that you think is worth spreading, maybe spread that. So try to amplify. If you don't have time to put your own message out there, you can try and amplify other people's messages.
Yeah, and I think the thing as well is, it doesn't necessarily have to take a lot of time to do something skeptical. You can always be surprised by the impact of a small thing that you've done. And it's something that Simon, saying Good Thinking, often says. When he saw a BBC documentary talking about acupuncture and how it was used as a anaesthetic, yes. He kind of looked into it for a moment and recognised that in the study or the surgery taking place where the person was having acupuncture as anaesthetic, the person had also been given very, very powerful local anaesthetics. And he wrote a complaint to the BBC about it. And then they wrote back saying effectively that they weren't going to listen to his complaint. So he then wrote another letter to the people above that complaint, to challenge the decision of that. And he got a result out of it. And so effectively, you could be talking about 2 or 3 emails to challenge something like that. Mm-hmm. If you see a local news piece and it runs something completely credulous, taking the time to write an email to them to explain why, promoting the idea that this psychic is going to find this dead body or is going to find this missing child, why that's a bad thing, and writing to them in a way that says, I think this is bad for these reasons, and it's not a kind of a yelling screed of you incompetent, irresponsible arseholes. If you're saying it in a fairly reasonable way, then maybe you won't stop that piece going out, but maybe the next time that producer is in a position where they might run a story like that, they remember your email and they think twice. You can't necessarily judge the effect of those types of small actions, but I think they are definitely worth it. So yeah, just challenging in a light way that doesn't necessarily take a lot of time to drop an email here or kind of write a quick message there. That can have more of an impact than you might imagine. We also had a question from Robert, who said, I love the sharing your personal and skeptical triumphs and challenges. I've got a question that isn't skeptical related, but I was writing and I noticed that I'm picking up terms from the show like numpty and bell end. And he says, now I'm wondering, what other exclamations and terms or not so much terms of endearments that you guys use? Would you care to share any?
Have we? Do we use numpty on the show?
I think we've used numpty
Maybe
once or twice. It doesn't really come into my normal lexicon. Bellend, I think, is the one that gets used a lot on this show.
Because recently they published a list of like the most heinous swear words, like categorized by how heinous they were.
Did they? I didn't see this list. I saw that the list had been published. I think you guys shared it somewhere, but I didn't have a chance to read through it.
And I was quite surprised to find like Bellend in the severe category.
Bellend is severe.
It's severe.
Yeah.
It's not like fucking severe, which I suppose is the next
what they shouldn't have called the category. Yeah.
But Bellend is in the severe category. I didn't realise until listeners started picking up that I say the word Bellend a lot.
You do say Bellend a lot.
And I didn't realise that I did that.
I didn't realise it wasn't a common term outside of the UK. Because even in Australia, when I went down for the Australian Skeptics convention...
And we share a lot of colloquialisms with our Antipodean friends,
really do.
don't we?
And I imagined that they know that. We had I think I mentioned on the show...
It sounds Australia, bloody belly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Well, we had a pub quiz. I think I mentioned on the show there's a pub quiz, and I was with a few people who listened to the show, and we said, what should we call our team name? And someone said, we'll call it the Bellends. And I was like... You sure you want to call it the Bellends? And they got towards the middle of the game, and one of the team members said, so what does it mean, Bellend? Right. I assumed you'd know that when you decided to name the team after the end of the male penis. But so Bellend doesn't travel well, apparently, but no. we're spreading that. I think knobhead. I quite like knobhead.
Yeah.
I'd go with knobhead or dickhead. I think I'd quite like dickhead as a term of an insult. You go for a lot of blimeys and crikeys.
I've picked up blimeys from Weeble and Bob.
From Weeble and Bob?
Weeble and Bob. That's
really?
where I picked up blimey from.
Wow, because I say blimey now because I've hung around with you so much that I'll say blimey and occasionally crikey.
Right.
Yeah, those are my kind of like terms of exasperation or surprise.
Alice, do you have some Derbyshire insults?
Insults, or it's terms of surprise, or it's terms of endearment. Those are the three things we're kind of looking at.
Terms of endearment, there's ones that I use. I use duck, but almost exclusively when I'm in Derby. I don't use it when I'm in Liverpool at all. I don't. I was referring when I took the dog down to my parents recently. I was calling him Duck quite a lot. It's like I never do that normally. When I'm in Liverpool, I don't use. Like my Derbyshire accent disappears. But yeah, so Duck's one. Referring to people as Mardy is another Derbyshire
Mardy,
one.
Yeah, Mardy. If you were surprised by something,
I just swear a lot, so it tends to be Jesus Christ or
fucking hell.
Fucking hell. I don't know.
I mean, the three of us do swear a lot.
Yeah.
We do swear an awful. I remember when we put episode 1 of this show out, and it's like we're putting an explicit tag on this.
Yes, yeah.
We're just not going to be able to help it. I mean, I know certainly me specifically, I struggle not to swear in a job interview.
Right.
I have to sit there and think it's one of the reasons why I don't change jobs often. It's because I turn up and go, it's a fucking long trip. And I don't get the job for some reason.
It's also why you don't appear on other people's podcasts or on radio these days.
So I have to quite consciously think about not swearing when I want to not swear, when I'm in polite company. When I was over in San Antonio the first time, I'd casually just thrown a bell end out there.
Yeah.
Only to be met by one of Katie's elderly relatives going, what a bell end? And I said, all right, I'll leave Katie to explain that one. I'm going to slink off.
Just sidle off.
And go and hide somewhere and avoid the mortifying embarrassment of my British colloquialisms. You can get away with a lot in Texas with a British accent, though.
I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can. I'm trying to think if there's any northeastern kind of colloquialisms I would have used. I would have used hinny, I think. You know,
you would have used hinny.
Yeah, but I don't use hinny anymore.
Right.
Not since I moved away from the northeast. But occasionally be like, yeah, all right, hinny, which is just a variant on honey, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it's quite. You seem shocked by that?
Well, literally the only person that I know in my life who ever used hinny was my gran.
Really?
Who called everyone hinny constantly.
Yeah.
Always made me think of a horse.
You think of Winnie?
Yeah, which oddly was my grand's name.
Was it really? There you
go. But yeah, there's northeastern ones. Gadgie,
an old gadgie, like an old fella.
Yeah, sometimes if I'm pleased with something, I'll say champion.
You do say champion. I don't say champion. I've never had the champion.
I will say champion.
But I think you're doing that ironically.
I was designing a user interface the other day, and I put the two options instead of OK and cancel. I put them as champion and had away and shite.
So I guess that's kind of our terms of endearment expression. I'm not sure if we have any others, but I'm sure they'll come up in future shows. We'll try and point them out as they go. Keep your questions coming to podcast@merseysideskeptics.org.uk. Yes, 9 years in, I'm starting to actually remember that. Is it 9 years? It's not far off that.
It is 8 years.
8 years.
We're just at 8 years. We are just about to start our 9th year.
That's right, yeah. So yeah, you can send us your questions either through the medium of words in an email, or you can send them through the medium of an MP3 file you've sent via email. So yeah, you can send us those questions and we'll cover them on future shows.
So the latest episode of Be Reasonable has recently been published, Marsh. That features an anonymous psychic claimant who got in touch with Merseyside Skeptics to say he had a psychic ability.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a chap who got in touch because he wanted advice on how to test his psychic ability. And I thought, having sort of chatted to him a bit over email, I thought it'd be an interesting thing to put out for people to hear how you start to look at these kind of claims, how you start to kind of put together an idea of a test, and kind of the people who come to do these kind of tests and how these tests might affect people. So that shows a little bit different to the normal style, but that's out now, and you can find that at merseysideskeptics.org.uk/podcasts, or Be Reasonable on iTunes and wherever else you kind of get your podcast, stuff like that.
We've also had a couple of people now write in saying, can we put our shows onto Google Play podcasts, which I would dearly love to, but it's not available in the UK yet.
Yeah.
So when we try to log into the publisher console, it says not available in your country, come back later.
Yeah, but we will at some point. If it's available for us, we'll do it.
Once it's available in the UK, we will put it up there. And if anyone listening happens to work for Google, pull your finger on that one. We've got content we want to publish, and we're struggling with that.
Exactly. I've also been on, I think I should be on the next episode of God Awful Movies, which was fun. It's a really fun show to do.
You're guesting on that one, are you?
I am, yeah. We did a film with Stephen Baldwin in, which it was Six the Mark Unleashed. I won't go into too much what it is. If you want to hear me be about as frustrated and exasperated by any film as I recall ever having been in my life, that is the show for you.
Really?
Yeah.
Worse than like Lucy?
Yeah, way more frustrated with Lucy. I didn't like the plot of Lucy.
Right.
I couldn't find the plot of this film. I couldn't tell you what I've seen it through a couple of times, this film, having sort of made notes and stuff on it. I don't know what the plot was. I can tell you what wasn't the plot. And what wasn't the plot is what the film spent an hour and 10 minutes on. The other 34 minutes of the film were apparently the plot, but I couldn't tell you what it was all about. But yeah, that should be a fun thing. And I think by the time this show goes out, that show will have already gone out. So if you look for God Awful Movies and stuff, you can find the God Awful Movies guys. And cool. That's always a fun show and well worth a listen.
We also recently we completed the Merseyside Skeptics charity walk, our annual charity walk, which we did in support of Merseyaide's refugee support this year, and so we did that, and that went quite well. We did the opposite route to the one we normally do, but it was quite good. There was some new people turned up.
Yeah, that was nice,
and we raised some money. How much money did we raise, Alice?
We have raised £200. We haven't met our target yet. You can still donate.
So our target was £250. So far, we've raised 200. Merseyside Skeptics has pledged to match that figure, pound for pound, which will be a donation that we make to the Whitechapel Homeless charity, which came 49% to the Merseyaide refugees, 51% in our Brexit narrow poll.
Even narrower than Brexit.
That we ran on Twitter. So you've still got time to put your donations in for that, and you will find a link to the donation page on the show notes. And if you've got a spare couple of pounds, even if you just want to throw in a pound or two, that is more than gratefully received. One more thing that I want to talk about, which is QED.
Yes.
So QED is our conference that we organise annually in Manchester in conjunction with the Greater Manchester Skeptics. QED this year is on the
14th and 15th of October.
It is 14th and 15th of October in central Manchester in the Mercure Piccadilly Hotel. We have just announced 3 more speakers.
Yes.
Tim O'Brien from University of Manchester and from Jodrell
Bank. Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Who is a regular on Stargazing Live, so he's going to be coming along to talk to us. We've got Carol Tavris, who we're flying in from the United States. She's a psychologist and writer who very famously wrote the book, or co-wrote the book, Mistakes Were Made, but Not By Me.
Yes, yeah, which is kind of hugely cited in the skeptical world, really.
And we've got Sophie Wilson, who is a computer scientist and engineer who co-designed the ARM processor, which is the microprocessor that runs basically every device in the world at this point. If it's not an Intel chip, it's an ARM chip. And Intel chips are in laptops, and ARM chips are in everything else. Although I put out recently on Twitter, I'd said, Sophie Wilson's coming to QED. I'm quite excited about that because she invented the ARM processor. And everyone replied going, fuck that, she did the BBC Micro.
I think that says more about who follows you on Twitter than it says about anything else.
I think it does. We have also announced that the guys from the Parapod are going to be doing a live show at QED.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. I don't know if you guys listen to Parapod. It's one of my favourite podcasts because you've got Barry Dodds, who's a comedian who believes in all manner of woo. And then you've got Ian Boldsworth, who is sort of a small S skeptic. I don't think he would have described himself as a skeptic in the sense of kind of knowing that there was a skeptical world out there and stuff like that. But he sort of listens to Barry trying to convince him of one particular ghost story or another, and then dissects that comically as they're talking, and it always ends up with him pointing out some severe flaws in Barry's logic and reasoning and some very obvious gaps in the stories that Barry's missed. So it's actually really good skepticism, but very, very funny at the same time. So yeah, really excited to have those guys coming to be in our podcast room.
On our podcast track,
alongside Incredulous, which is kind of our mainstay.
Incredulous is going to be returning, and as indeed are we.
Yeah, we're doing a live show there.
We're going to be doing
I think we all agreed to that. I don't think we asked Alice.
You genuinely haven't asked me.
No, I forgot to actually put that out. You're fine with that, though, aren't you?
Yes.
I mean, this is us asking you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But yes, we'll be doing a live Skeptics with a K in the podcast track, possibly with a stand-in host. Because Alice has got the hump and told us all to fuck off. So tickets for QED are available now. They're available at the website, which is qedcon.org. They are £109 or £75 if you're a student or if you are under 18. For students who, because we appreciate that student finances can be very squeezed, we have Hayley Stevens has put together effectively a scholarship program for students who want to come to QED but can't afford the ticket. You can find information about that in the show notes for this episode. I believe that there are tickets still left for people to apply for. There's no catches. If you're a student, you apply, there's a good chance that you're going to get a ticket, which Hayley organises out of the goodness of her heart. We don't even ask her to do it. She just went ahead and did it because she thought it was a cool thing to do, and we love her for that. Also turns out Hayley doesn't listen to the show because she did not reply to our question that we asked on air last episode, which, to be honest, I couldn't blame her because I wouldn't listen to this shit either. Aside from that, I think that is all we have time for.
I think so.
All that remains then is for me to thank Marsh for coming along today.
Thank you. I'm glad to have come along to my kitchen.
And thank you to Alice.
Thank you.
We have been Skeptics with a K, and we will see you next time.
Bye now.
Bye.
Skeptics with a K is a production of the Merseyside Skeptics Society. For more information, visit our website www.merseysideskeptics.org.uk or email podcast@merseysideskeptics.org.uk.